to become a robotics AI company, you have to have the AI. And curious if the panel here thinks that, are you happy with the progress that Tesla's making and XAI is with, I think he's calling Cortex and Colossus the largest supercomputers in the world, or at least one of them. This weekend, we learned that Larry Ellison was interviewed, and he was telling a story where he and Elon Musk were having dinner with Jensen Huang of NVIDIA. And the way Larry told it was they were begging NVIDIA and Jensen, sell us, give us, take our money. We want to buy as much and as many as we can. And then he did say that it worked, that dinner worked, and he did get what they were asking for. So this point that Elon, when he wants something to happen, he has the ability to do it somehow. He wins, he gets it. And that, is Tesla today set up to be one of the largest data centers in the world, eventually one of the leaders in AI, eventually one of the leaders even in the chips, competing directly with NVIDIA themselves. But just hearing Larry Ellison explain not only the demand for AI in the future, but he was saying that the most important thing is be first. Every company, all the major hyperscalers, Meta and Google and Microsoft and Tesla and others, they want to be first in some area, because he said that it makes a difference to be first in some area. I'm much more happier today than I was in January this year, where we were, beating the drum saying that Tesla needs to actually raise money in order to buy more of these chips as possible to build out these data centers. Now, they ended up not needing to raise the money because they, I believe, redirected the money from building out Giga Mexico. They spent the $10 billion that we were hoping for. So what does the panel think? Are you guys happy where we're at today? And what's your thoughts on the Larry Ellison interview?
Well, I thought it was fascinating. I think that's the real driver for Dojo, right? Is you can't be sure you're going to be able to get enough NVIDIA chips. And it's one of the real drivers for Dojo is you don't know if you're going to be able to get enough chips for your aspirations. So you need to have your own chip. And then of course there's some specialized hardware that you need for your objective in training cars and training robots, humanoid robots. So was there something else in the interview you were asking about, or just about NVIDIA chips?
I just love the fact that he had that dinner with Jensen Huang, and according to Larry, they accomplished what they were asking for, which is, begging him, take our money, sell us the most chips that we are asking for. We want more. And according to Larry, they got what they asked for.
Of course, Larry had to drop, and of course, I picked up the check. He had to say that.
For the dinner, yeah. Who cares? Yeah, Omar, what's your thoughts about Cortex and Colossus? Are you happy with the size and the speed?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible, obviously. These are some of the largest compute clusters in the world. So it really speaks to Tesla's strengths that they were able to pull this off.
Yeah, exactly. Chris?
Do you think?
Go ahead, Sander.
Do you guys think that Elon's sandbagging on the Dojo stuff because we want to keep NVIDIA happy?
I don't think so. I mean, just listen to him. I don't see that he sandbags. I think he honestly just tells you what he's thinking, and you can hear him calculating in his head that he goes, okay, we're going to do version 2 by the end of next year, maybe version 3 by the end of that next year. Like you can hear the way he's thinking. And he said, typically it takes about 3 iterations of a product before you'll know whether or not this thing is going to be incredible, that you can actually sell it to customers and have a software as a chip as a service, right? Service.
No, but I think he's credibly saying he's not positioning Dojo 3 or whatever to be a competitor to NVIDIA. And if you think about it, they're designing these Dojo and AI5 and maybe the AI6 chip or whatever. The real market opportunity for Tesla is not selling AI chips to people. The real market opportunity for Tesla is selling robotics to people. And Tesla has such a massive lead in robotics. And if you think about the need that they're going to have for AI training for Optimus, as the number of tasks or the number of skill sets or whatever it is that you need to do to train these robots, the amount of compute you're going to need for that as you scale is going to be insane, because you're going to be generating a massive amount of data from millions of robots, and you're going to find all these things you need to train for, and you're going to need to retrain, and you're going to need to retrain, and you need a hardware training hardware that's optimized for the inference chip in the bot. And you need an inference. There's a parallel or a duality or a parallel problem here. If you're engineering your training chip, and Omar is going to know more about this stuff than I am, but I think if there's a value in having training hardware that's optimized for your inference and inference that's optimized for your training hardware. Does that make any sense, Omar? Or am I totally wrong?
I mean, look at NVIDIA's business. They're selling these DGX H100 systems for $40,000 at 76% margins. That's a pretty great business. So to the extent that we can sell AI training solutions to other people, I think it looks like an even better business than the car business right now. I don't know if that's going to hold up long term, but it really is pretty incredible today. And I think really when you look at like AWS, for example, they were able to invest in additional compute, handle peak loads for Amazon.com, and build out more than would have been justified otherwise because they're able to rent out those instances to other people.
Well, I mean, what you're saying makes sense, but once you start competing with NVIDIA, margins go down, and the margin for Optimus might be 90% or bigger.
Once you start competing with NVIDIA, what margins go down?
The margins on chips. If you're making enough Dojo chips, I mean, maybe not. Maybe the demand for AI hardware is so high that the margins never go down.
So, what I liked, yeah, it's interesting thought. Obviously, if Tesla could get in the business of, I think the business is going to evolve. By the way, I think we're in the first inning. The business is going to. Hello, can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
No, we
I can
got
hear
you. Yeah, it looks like Omar was
Okay.
breaking through.
I think the business is going to evolve in terms of like what's done on the training side, what's done on the inference side, and Tesla has in terms of like millions of devices in people's hands. I think Tesla has, or in this case, vehicles, and Tesla has a pretty outsized lead in terms of that AI inference portion of it. So I think this thing's going to move back and forth in terms of the value on the training side and the value on the inference or real world device side. And NVIDIA likes Tesla because Tesla is getting they're pulling their product, they're getting the data centers built very quickly. They're pulling it, they're powering up the silicon, and they're using it. And that means when you're pulling stuff from inventory, you're powering up, you're using it, you're going to be ordering stuff right away, right after. If you're slow at doing that shit and you're slow at executing, you're not going to be reordering. The other thing that has to be on NVIDIA's mind is Elon really building this stuff in the background? It sounds like he is. They've got incredible intelligence, I'm sure, in terms of what Elon is doing. So Elon has used Dojo all along the way. A year ago, the conversation was less than 10% probability. NVIDIA, give me everything you can. And that was what was needed in that climate at that point in time. Now the conversation is, we think we're going to have something that's within a year of Blackwell when it comes out at the end of next year. Well, what's the message to NVIDIA there? The message to NVIDIA there is, we don't like the pricing, we don't like the supply that we're getting from you right now. Can you help us out more? Can you get actually in this fixed amount of time, if we're going to be starting to ramp up more of our own stuff, you want to get as much stuff into Elon as possible over this next finite period of time. So from my vantage point, and I've been in these conversations before at various levels, this is being handled very well, I believe. And it's really maximizing his company's ability to get this gold, which is right now, these NVIDIA GPUs, and to be at the front of the line for Blackwell. He was probably at the front of the line for Hopper, even though he started later. I'm sure he was getting more of what he needed, maybe better than others. So it's really important to maintain those relationships, to have that respect. And it's a double-sided coin for NVIDIA. And on the one hand, they're going to have the best demonstration of AI and capability. You know, Tesla's FSD is done on NVIDIA training. And NVIDIA can go out and boast about that on their earnings calls and with investors and so forth. And on the other hand, Tesla is going to be pulling product and pulling more product quicker than others because they're actually using it. Herbert, back to you.
Yeah, we can go with Deuce.
Hey, love the conversation per usual. I'm a beta tester since 2021, and I have a Model X Plaid and a Model S, a kind of second generation one, 2017. And I just think it's really awesome. You know, before anyone gives me any applause, I think it's just really awesome how quickly the hardware 3 and hardware 4 updates are coming out, and how amazing it is as a beta tester to just take the same route on the same day with my Model X, and then take my Model S and then go a similar route and have them perform exactly the same. And in both of them having like 100% like unique quirks, and you know, like the cars feel different, the cars weigh differently. And I think it's just an awesome system that they can plug and play, and you know, and offer to the auto industry, you know, in the near future.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that was a big jump.
Go
Big
ahead,
jump.
Jeff.
I agree. I was just say that there was probably an incredible amount of engineering work involved to bring hardware 3 and hardware 4 releases up to, you know, being at comparable, at least levels in terms of release timing. There's probably a tremendous amount of engineering work involved, and it shows you it's going to, you know, unlock this capability across, you know, many millions of vehicles. So it was a huge accomplishment.
If it can work in the previous older cars, and it can work in various form factors, including the Cybertruck and these existing Model S, X, and 3 and Y, it very likely will work on a semi. It very likely will work on a new design we've never seen before. This is the brilliance of Tesla, to be able to create a technology that's going to be, you know, useful for everything. Ash? Okay. Chris?
Shock.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have like 2 or 3 people, including Omar, that I can't hear in this space. So I hope it didn't. I'm not repeating something, but like on Jason Wong's like perspective, it seems to me in every interview that I ever listened to him that he is extremely like happy and proud to like assist Tesla. That is my personal gut feeling. I don't know if NVIDIA or he personally actually owns any form of Tesla stock. I've never actually heard this topic being addressed. And the other comment that I would have here is that for NVIDIA, Tesla, in my opinion, represents like one of these perfect amalgamations of like how like it can be integrated into real world hardware, you know, and utilized within in a different environment, not just these LLMs. And we see this on respect to Colossus, as you mentioned, Herbert. We see a rapid set of progression, like with all these new iterations that are coming out. And that was their bottleneck before. And it seems like this is really what is going to change this company.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Chris. Meta.
Hey, I'm not sure if you guys are interested in like an analogy or an explanation for why, but I think all the
Of course we are. Thank you, please.
but like, so for folks who were like really thinking that hardware is not going to catch up with different kinds of hardware, I think one of the ways to, I hope the message is landed for people, is the analogy I was using is like, imagine hardware 3 was a regular keyboard, and hardware 4 is a keyboard where they replace the letter Q with a key that when you type it, the letters Q and U both appear on the screen. You can still use the backspace to get the letter Q on its own, but if you type the letter QU, it'll pop both characters up on the screen. Overall, using the English language as an example, you'll probably have less keystrokes with the new keyboard. But if you just type the same keys that you would on the new keyboard in the old keyboard, you'll miss the letter U in a bunch of places. So you can't just like move your keystrokes over to the other keyboard. But once you've built a little adapter that says, oh, every time I'm type QU, press the actual keys Q and U, or the other way around, however which way you need to do it. Once you've built that adapter, you only need to build it once, and then every time after that, it's easy. In this analogy, it's very easy to build that adapter, but generally speaking, it's obviously a little bit of work, and that's why they didn't necessarily build it right away. But now that they've built it, I think we should see regular updates for both hardware 3 and hardware 4. And when people are like saying, oh, I don't know if the hardware was going to be able to do the same thing, I think we're really, really obsessing over the wrong thing there, because if you look at the ratio of hardware 4's inputs to the camera input, it's roughly the same. So the big difference is definitely the camera has much more pixels, so that like that could lead to differences. But other than being able to see further and smaller objects, I don't think there's a significant difference from a hardware perspective between the two.
Appreciate that explanation, Meta. And you've got that background. Ashok, sorry, I called you earlier. Called you Ash. It's Ashok. No? Maybe he can't hear me.
Ashok,
Brian
can you hear?
insulted him.
Ashok, can you hear and can you unmic yourself and speak?
There you go. Thank you.
Ashok, we can't hear you if you're speaking. You're unmiked, but we still don't hear you.
Paul Horton, welcome to the stage.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for adding me to the space on X. I really appreciate it and look forward to being a part of this conversation.
Okay, we can hear you now. Is there something you want to say?
Okay, let's move on. Sorry about that, Ashok. Paul, hey, welcome.
Hello,
What's your name?
family and friends.
Yeah, it's been a while. What's up?
Welcome.
Enjoying this conversation. I'd like to know more about this differences between hardware 3 and 4. And somebody mentioned that they have both versions and they're noticing a difference in the driving or the feel between the two vehicles.
Yes, sir. My name's Austin. I have a Model X Plaid hardware 4, and then a Model S 2017 hardware 3. And what I meant by that, just to clarify, is like the driving styles of the vehicles are almost like firing different, like, rifles.
Right.
They have different like characteristics.
I do have a question for you, not to interrupt you, but I did. I do apologize. You said a 2017? Okay,
Yes,
so
sir. The 2017 75V.
right. So that wouldn't have the interior camera monitoring you, is that correct?
You are extremely correct,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah. So what I'm looking for is somebody, possibly Xander, hint, hint, wink, wink, how his hardware 4 compares to his hardware 3 if he still has those vehicles. Because my experience is the hardware 4 isn't dramatically better, but it's noticeably better driving. Omar, you still have a hardware 3, don't you?
He's no longer a speaker.
Oh, well, yeah, he'd be the one to tell me. But so hardware 3 is incredible. I've been really happy with what I've driven, but I think the hardware 4 has an advantage, not only in the cameras, of course, but the processing power. I noticed it makes more smooth transitions when it makes decisions, where sometimes the hardware 3 kind of second guesses itself. Not always, but sometimes. So I'm really excited to see just the changes in the next 6 months, because the leaps and bounds that's happened over just the past 6 months has been phenomenal. I mean, I have not been able to complain about my FSD.
It really is something.
What was that?
Yeah, it really is something, Paul. Ever since I was getting the voxel visualizations back before the occupancy network was even thought of, before pushing out to normal consumers like me, and now, but I did want to respond. Yes, I do get a lot more heavy brake thuds in the hardware 3. Those moments where it's maybe kind of, lacking latency advantage. It seems like as the hardware 4 can almost do like some kind of like, you know, decision theory over game theory kind of mentality.
I can definitely see that. But I mean, if you get a chance to get in a little bit newer, maybe a 20 or 21 model, see if you can notice a difference. Or even,
Yeah, I'll try to get into a Model S. My Model X is kind of like an SUV. It's a 2022. I'm about to trade it in for a Cybertruck.
okay.
I'm just waiting on
So
that. And
is your
yeah,
S,
the
you
body
said
is weird
you'd mentioned that you have a
in a good way.
Model X, you said
Yes, sir.
22. So it has hardware 3 on it, or does it have 4?
Hardware
Oh,
4.
nice. Very nice. Good for you.
Okay. Let's
Thank you.
let's move on to the next. Another question on this, or
Sure.
another topic, Herbert?
I can ask a question before I drop down.
Okay,
Herbert can go first, though.
go ahead.
Yeah. So is Tesla pretty much locked in with their approach? Basically, continue producing hardware for ad libitum, because I feel as though the cameras, being megapixel rated, and things being able to be upscaled and redone, and synthetic training and pruning. Like, I really feel like we're pretty much there. And like in right now, we just have to connect that financial part to that business model.
I don't understand the question.
Where does the hardware department looking next?
Well, I mean, Elon has said that the AI5 chip, I think he said, would be end of next year. So they're going to continue making hardware 4 for all the vehicles. And I think there's an open question. Are they going to make AI5 chip in very low volume for Optimus? Or are they going to run Optimus on hardware 4? I'm guessing they're going to run Optimus on hardware 4 for now, or AI4 chip.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, great answer. Love the interoperability of the systems. I think it's a great scaling solution. Thanks for your time, everyone.
And I should say, I think we're going to see a reveal of the next generation Optimus on 1010. And I could be wrong about that, but he's talked about they have a working prototype with the new hand that has the servos or whatever you call them, the motors in the arm instead of in the hand. It makes perfect sense to me that they would at least demo Optimus at this 1010 event. And then hopefully we'll learn more about how they're making it and what hardware it's using.
Yeah, maybe put that on the bingo card.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, by the way, I had asked earlier about this title of the space, Ready to Break Through, and if we were referring to the stock, and Herbert said we weren't. But for those people who were wondering about when we're going to see a breakthrough in the stock, and specifically reference to Optimus, and I hope I'm not going too far from wherever we were talking. I don't know if we had a topic, but um, if Optimus isn't, if you watch the conversation on the All In Pod, Elon is basically saying we're going to be doing a million a year of Optimus in 2029 or 2030. So that's not a big boost to revenue in the short to medium term. But at the same time, once you start having enough robots out there, and I think at some point they have to demonstrate a business model for Optimus, and I think that happens before 2029. I think that happens on the second generation. Like the first generation of Optimus will be working in Tesla factories. I was hoping for a bot beta program, but it's pretty clear I'm wrong on that. So the first generation of Optimus will be working in Tesla factories, and then the second generation of Optimus might be sold to customers, maybe industrial customers rather than beta nerds like me. But at some point, once they start selling Optimus to customers, that's where you start to see revenue line, and you start to see a future of profitability that changes the game for the stock. Does anybody see Optimus having an impact on the stock before 2027, for example?
If I'm talking to crickets, I think it does have a effect on the stock because stock would be classified as futures. I mean, Optimus is going to be here a lot quicker than we think it's going to be. It might be in limited capacity, But just think, if we have one robot sitting on the assembly line and their only job is to push a button, that's redundant. It will save us labor dramatically. So yeah, a lot of
I
things are
think we're going to
repetitious.
I think we're going to see hundreds, if not thousands, of Tesla Optimus and Tesla factories um, by, like, let's say 2026. I don't know if we're going to see that many doing that much work in Tesla factories in 2025, but sometime in 2026, I think you're going to start to see a significant volume of Teslas, at least of Optimus, at least in the factories. And I think you might see a value there if it's lowering the cost of goods sold.
Can we
Yeah,
go a little?
there'll be some. Sorry,
Oh no,
there'll be a gradient, and the first spot where it's going to become apparent is honestly Tesla reporting on number of bot employees almost, and what is it doing to their cost of goods sold. Tesla has to advertise this using their own using their own factories, so that it kind of it puts 1+1 together for everyone and says, look, this is what it can do for your business model if you make any widget anywhere in the world. I think it's going to be pretty readily apparent though, but seeing is believing, and actually getting the product out there and having it demonstrate that it's actually producing the business results. There is a gap between like the theoretical world and the real world, and that's why I always try to remind people like that time for when Optimus can actually grab something and do it, you know, 100,000 times in a row correctly, and not only, what does correctly mean? Correctly means proper XYZ coordinates, proper grip strength or pressures, proper speed, and proper movement from point A to point B. That's going to be, they're going to spend a lot of time optimizing that, and that's going to take. It's going to, these things where we see like these robots like cracking an egg and frying and doing all this other shit. These are like really low, kind of low quality, low accuracy type things. But when it comes time to being in a factory where you need, fairly significant accuracy, it's going to take a period of time for them to do that. So I think that's one of the other reasons that Elon knows what these bots have to do to be useful in factories. And that's maybe some of the time arbitrage you see being put in.
Jeff, you said 100,000 times. Doesn't it just have to be better than human? And isn't better than human, 1,000 times without a mistake, or even 100 times without a mistake?
It depends where you're using them. I actually think I have a theory that I think is going to be proven correct, that everybody's focused on the replacement of human labor, but I actually believe that there's also going to be a replacement of capital equipment as well, that something you would have capitalized and built into a fixed robot or a fixed station that you're going to solve with a more malleable humanoid. So yes, I mean there's levels of improvement needed for it to be allowed into production. But when you're trying to, change the game, the economics game, you don't want to just, you have something that can be a lot better than humans. You really want to dial that in and get that, going. This is a tough topic. It's so nuanced to actually talk about in a space, because there's just so many factors involved and decisions involved in how to do this. But in general, I think they're going to replace human labor, but they're also going to replace things that were capex machinery before, that can now be in the form of a humanoid. And the biggest thing you want with that is you want the flexibility of a humanoid, where a humanoid can be reprogrammed and used elsewhere. And a lot of capital in factories today can be reprogrammed and used elsewhere, but not quickly.
But doesn't it even change? You might end up changing your whole manufacturing model, because all of a sudden you have very cheap humanoid labor, and all of a sudden
Yes.
you might decide, hey, this
Yes.
process, we can do now we can have 100 bots in a small amount of space all doing work without banging into each other. We can get a hell of a lot done with humanoid robots. it may become more efficient to do things. I'm not saying I understand how you would change the manufacturing process, but you might end up with completely different manufacturing processes.
Yes, you do.
What do you think the unbox process is about?
I'd be really curious to know what Herbert's view is on this.
He's over there stealing his grass or something. I don't think you can hear Omar. Omar, say that again.
Yeah.
Probably stepped away.
Well, yeah. I will give you a quick, for instance. You can't take the current manufacturing model today that like BYD, Huawei use for mobile phones, Xiaomi, even to an extent Apple and others. You can't take that and transfer it to the United States the way it is today because it was actually designed for the labor and the workforce that's available in the countries that they're building. Those decisions actually go into the design of the product and the design of the manufacturing operation. And you would do a completely different manufacturing operation if you were doing it for the United States. There were things you would automate, and there were things you would change in the product to make it simpler and to allow it to be automated here. So there are reasons to do that even today based on geography. And by the way, this is one of the reasons that the Chinese are going to struggle abroad with building cars. Not Chinese in general, but many of the current China operators that are under automated are going to struggle in Western European, even Eastern European, and definitely anywhere near the the northern or southern hemisphere. They're going to struggle, and it may be a huge, like, catastrophic struggle, or it just may take many years, because of you design products differently based on the labor content and the labor rates and what you're doing. So yeah, humanoids are going to change the way products are designed in a meaningful way. Well, we are approaching the second hour mark. If you have like a question, we don't want to go into like War and Peace. We're going to wrap up in the next few minutes. So if there's a question for the panel or a thought to put out to the panel, please go ahead. Sanjay, you've had your head up, and then back to Paul.
I was just going to add a little bit of what you just said now, Jeff. You kind of stole my thunder with regards to the...
Sorry about that.
No worries. It was regarding the geographical aspect of Tesla bot. It's going to level the playing field, like you said, across the world with the competing labor force from China. So in essence, you could actually have a lot more manufacturing across the US and other developed nations which had lost their manufacturing abilities to the Far East and cheaper countries, where labor is the key component, for saving cost. So that's pretty much what I was going to add.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, we could have a whole other space in this. I could walk you through, because I did this at least a multi-million unit per month scale of bringing. I built a smartphone operation in the U.S. and we ran it. But there are things that are involved, and there's things that change when you're at the million a month level versus the 10 million a month level, and there's things that you start running into in terms of workforce and tooling capability and so forth. So it could be a fascinating discussion to have on a longer space, more dedicated time. But yeah, humanoids are going to change where you can do things and what's possible. Totally agree on that.
Yeah, just very quickly. I mean, with regards to the question of whether the share price will go up, I have a feeling that once Tesla provides proof of concept within their factories, nobody's going to wait for it to be scaled out for the share price to go, and everyone's want to try and get some money out of the stock and jump in as soon as anything is announced, where there is actual productivity from Optimus.
Yep, we'll see. I think there's all kinds of angles on this that we can look at, and prior precedents with, Hopper and NVIDIA, and what did it take for people to wake up, and felt like, there was a little bit of a awakening in November when they had ChatGPT unveiled, but there really wasn't that huge awakening in the stock until the following quarter when they printed some massive revenues from AI data center shipments, and then the world, and it was really, like, honestly too late. I mean, like, the investment community analysts really missed, the start of AI. They could have really gotten ahead of it. Any other questions or comments from the panel?
Yeah, I'll just add on to
Yeah, it was
the
a good
stock.
it's a good conversation. 12.5.3 and 2 and 3, I think, is going out to a lot more hardware 3 and 4 customers now. It's exciting. 1010's approaching. Lots of conversation on business model, lots of conversation on the size of compute and the opportunity out there. Larry Ellison saying $100 billion for a frontier model. We talked and debated about what they're going to show at the 1010 event. We're all kind of a little bit on different pages, which tells you that this could go anywhere. It's exciting. So we do this every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central. And thank you to the host on the panel and the speakers, everyone that's come up or people that have come up recently and left. Thank you for your inputs, and follow the host, follow the speakers. And thanks everyone who dropped comments in as well. And we'll see you next week.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.